They looked flawless on screen, the daring pirate and the brave heroine, sailing through storms and chaos with effortless charm. But behind the cameras of Pirates of the Caribbean, the story was far from smooth. Keira Knightley was only 19 when she stepped onto that massive set beside Johnny Depp, whose unpredictable energy seemed to dominate every scene. Years later, she's finally breaking her silence about what those years were truly like. What did she see? What did she feel? And why is she choosing to speak now, after all this time? Before she became a global star, Keira was just a young actress stepping into a cinematic world that felt like another universe. The year was 2002, and Disney was preparing a massive gamble, a pirate adventure based on a theme park ride. It sounded strange to many, but to Keira, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. She had just gained recognition through Bend It Like Beckham and suddenly found herself cast opposite Johnny Depp, one of the most magnetic and unpredictable actors in Hollywood. Keira never imagined the film would become a worldwide phenomenon. "I thought it was just going to be a fun summer job," she once laughed. But that summer job turned into years of sequels, promotions, and a defining chapter of her career. She became Elizabeth Swann, the governor's daughter turned fearless pirate, a role that would immortalize her name. What she didn't know then was that this journey would challenge her in ways no script could predict. Johnny Depp was already a legend by that time, known for disappearing completely into his roles. He was seen as a genius, but also as someone who lived by his own unpredictable rhythm. Keira, on the other hand, was still learning how to navigate the complex machinery of big-budget filmmaking. The power gap between them was vast, not just in age, but in experience and influence. From the moment the cameras rolled, the chemistry between Elizabeth Swann and Captain Jack Sparrow was electric. Keira approached every line with discipline and precision, while Johnny thrived on improvisation and spontaneity. "You never knew what he'd do next," one crew member recalled. "He'd rewrite the mood of a scene in seconds. That was both his gift and his chaos." At first, Keira admired it. Watching Depp work was like witnessing a storm take shape, thrilling, magnetic, and impossible to control. But slowly, she began to sense an invisible hierarchy shaping the set. Depp wasn't just the lead actor, he was the axis around which everything revolved. His choices dictated tone, timing, even direction. Everyone adapted, sometimes willingly, sometimes out of quiet necessity. Despite the tension beneath the surface, the film became a massive success. Pirates of the Caribbean was an instant blockbuster, and Keira Knightley was catapulted into international fame. Awards, magazine covers, and red carpets followed, all shining lights that came with the heavy weight of expectation. She was the youngest in a cast full of veterans, still trying to understand her place in an industry where power spoke louder than truth. Looking back, Keira describes that experience as a mix of wonder and unease. "It was incredible," she admitted, "but also overwhelming. You realize how small you can feel in a world that big." That world wasn't just the movie set, it was the unspoken structure of fame and silence that dictated how people behaved. What began as an exciting adventure soon turned into a quiet education in control, hierarchy, and endurance. When Keira first met Johnny Depp, she met not just a co-star, but a symbol. Depp was more than an actor, he was an enigma. Known for playing misfits and rebels, he carried an aura that was both fascinating and intimidating. On the pirate set, his charisma wasn't just visible, it was palpable. Keira was 19, he was 40. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. Depp's career had already defined a generation. From Edward Scissorhands to Donnie Brasco, he was the kind of artist who made studios nervous and audiences obsessed. When he showed up as Jack Sparrow, the crew didn't see just another performance, they saw a master at work, bending the script and rewriting the rules. His drunken swagger, his unpredictable delivery, his strange humor, it all terrified executives at first, until it became cinematic gold. "Nobody could have played Jack like Johnny," Keira would later say. "He turned a cartoon into something human." Yet behind her admiration was the awareness of his power. When Depp spoke, everything stopped. People adjusted, directors listened, and silence often filled the air when he was deep in thought. His charm was intoxicating but sharp, it could warm or wound depending on the day. For Keira, that presence was both a source of inspiration and quiet discomfort. She watched, learned, and adapted. When he improvised, she followed his lead. When he pulled back, she gave space. Her instinct for survival became part of her performance, a delicate balancing act between respect and self-protection. Those who worked on set described her as grace under pressure. But there were days when the tension became impossible to ignore. Depp's moods often dictated the tone of the entire production. If he was cheerful, the set was alive. If he withdrew, the air turned heavy. He could change the atmosphere without saying a word, one insider said. Keira sensed it too, though she never let it show. Her professionalism became her armor. Over time, she began to notice how certain behaviors were excused in the name of genius, how discomfort was brushed aside as part of the process. She didn't have the words to challenge it then, but she felt the imbalance keenly. There were jokes that went too far, boundaries that blurred, and moments when laughter masked unease. Filming in the Caribbean added to that strange isolation, long hours, relentless heat, and a tight-knit crew that lived in each other's pockets. Privacy was rare, and gossip moved faster than wind. Keira focused on what she could control, her lines, her sword training, her costume fittings, anything to keep steady in the storm. There were scenes that tested her composure, moments where improvisation crossed into something unplanned. Once, during a close exchange meant to be playful, Depp shifted the energy unexpectedly. Keira stayed professional, finished the scene, and brushed it off with a smile. Later, she would quietly admit it had left her unsettled, not because of anything overt, but because of how unpredictable it all felt. Still, she didn't complain. The industry had unspoken rules: stay agreeable, don't disrupt, don't question. She learned early that young actresses who spoke out were labeled difficult. So, she learned to stay calm, to read the room, and to choose her silences wisely. You figure people out quickly, she later said. Especially when you're young and trying not to step on anyone's toes. Those years shaped her, not just as an actress, but as a person who learned how to exist within power. She understood the cost of silence long before she could name it. The film made her a star, but it also forced her to grow up faster than she expected. You had to know how to keep people happy, she later said. That's how you survived. For Keira, silence became both her shield and her burden. During the height of Pirates fame, she said little publicly about her experiences. She praised Johnny's talent and avoided controversy, choosing diplomacy over confrontation. Her pauses, however, said more than her words. It wasn't ignorance, it was survival.